Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lucy and in today's video I'm sharing with you some fantasy romance books that are on my TBR for the rest of this year. So if you're new here, welcome. You may not know, but I'm a huge fantasy romance reader. I do lots of different fantasy romance videos, including lots of recommendations. I will leave my fantasy romance video playlist down below so you can catch up on all of my fantasy romance videos. However, if you're not new here, it won't come as much as a surprise that I am already thinking about what fantasy romance reads I need to read in the next 6 months. So like towards the end of this year, I would like to read all of these books. There are 2 new releases on here, so 2 books that have not yet been published. So I'm going to talk about those first, and then I'll go into the books that are already published and that I just need to get around to reading. So the first book is definitely one of my most anticipated reads of this year. It is Throne of the Fallen by Kerri Maniscalco. Now this is like a spin-off series to the Kingdom of the Wicked series by Kerri Maniscalco, which is predominantly like a YA NA series all about witches and demons. And that series, the Kingdom of the Wicked series, is one of my all-time favorite like book series ever. It's like crashed its way into my Hall of Fame because it is just spectacular. I talk about it a lot on this channel, so if you watch one of my fantasy romance videos before, you'll probably have heard about this series, but please read that series if you haven't yet. Now, Throne of the Fallen actually features one of the other 7 princes of hell that is featured in Kingdom of the Wicked, and that is the Prince of Envy. And basically, this is another romance, but it is adult romance, and it's supposed to be super steamy, super addictive. I already am counting down the days to this. This is published in October, and let me just read you the description because that'll probably be more useful than me telling you what it's about. So it says, sinner, villain, ruthless. These are wicked names the Prince of Envy welcomes. They remind him what he isn't, a saint. And when a cryptic note arrives signaling the beginning of a deadly game, he knows he'll be called much worse before it ends. Riddles, hexed objects, anonymous players, nothing will stand in his way. With a powerful artifact and his own future at stake, Envy is determined to win, though none of his meticulous plans prepare him for her, the frustrating artist who ignites his sin and passion like no other. And it sounds like a human woman called Camilla, or Camille, I think her name is Camilla. Basically, Camilla has her own issues going on. It sounds like this book is maybe even set in like Regency era, potentially. And basically, to avoid scandal in this society, Camilla enters into a bargain with this mysterious lord who I'm guessing will turn out to be Envy. I'm really excited for a lot of kind of callbacks to Kingdom of the Wicked, and this is immediately one of my most anticipated reads of the year. The second book, which I believe comes out in September or October as well, I want to say, is The Scarlet Veil by Shelby Maharin. So like Throne of the Fallen, The Scarlet Veil is also a spin-off to a very popular series. So it is the spin-off to Serpent and Dove, and I believe it's like either a standalone or part of a new series. But it follows Sally, who is part of the Serpent and Dove kind of characters in that series by Shelby Maharin, and she is such a good character. Like, I loved Sally. At first she seemed like she would be a villain, but actually I'm really excited that she has her own book now. So if you've never read Serpent and Dove, it's really set in kind of a fictionalized French world, really focused around religion, especially this group called the Chasseurs, who are basically witch hunters. They are out to kill evil creatures. And in The Scarlet Veil, Sally actually joins the Chasseurs as their first like huntswoman. So she's engaged to another character from the Serpent and Dove series called Jean-Luc, and I'm guessing they won't stay together. I just have a feeling that, like, we know that this is going to be vampire romance, and I have a feeling that she maybe will sack Jean-Luc off, or maybe something will happen there. I obviously don't know. I haven't read this book yet, it's not out, but there are vampires in this book. This is a vampire fantasy romance book, and give me the vampires, give me the romance. I am so excited about this book already, and I really hope it does meet my expectations. So those are the 2 books on my TBR that haven't been released yet, but everything else has been, and I've got some books here that I really want to talk about. So the first book is What Lies Beyond the Veil by Harper L. Woods, and this is a fantasy romance featuring the Fae, which Fae fantasy romance, one of my all-time favorites. And if you haven't yet watched my Fae fantasy romance book recommendations video, I will leave that link down below. So this follows our main character Estrella, and she is on the precipice of being married to the Lord of Misfell. And basically this is a world where the humans have long been kept apart from the Fae by this kind of barrier, this veil, and the Fae are essentially evil, I think, to the humans. This human world has like gone from this world of sin with the Fae to a very pure existence, worshipping these new gods. So Estrella doesn't want to marry this man because apparently he's murdered his wife. So she's like, hell no, I don't want to be involved with this man. And she has a choice. Either she accepts his hand or she is sacrificed to the Veil, aka the Fae. And she chooses the Veil, I believe. And the Fae essentially mark her, which means that they will collect her at some point and bring her back. This is of course a romance book, and I have heard it's really, really good. This is part of a series, so it's called A Flesh and Bone, the series. So let me know if you've read this book. I have seen this around and I've been meaning to read this one for a while. I do think it'll be quite spicy, quite dark, which I'm super excited about, but I don't really know what to expect from this book. So if you have read it, please do let me know your thoughts. The next book I really want to read this autumn, like in the next few months, is The Foxglove King by Hannah Witten. So I've heard so many good things about this book actually. This is about Law, who is basically escaping from a cult. Like she is in hiding from this awful cult that she was like brought up in. And to do this, she basically joins the city's underworld, where she is using her magic, which is a very rare magic, and I believe she's like running poisons for this underground group. Then when a poison run goes wrong, she's captured by the Sainted King, who is apparently very corrupt, very evil. She is like drawn into his court, and there I think it's lots of forbidden love, lots of deceit, lots of tangles in politics and religion. So this sounds super, super dark, super great. This is my gorgeous Fairy Loot edition, which honestly I am like here for. There's like gorgeous artwork, and look at that, how stunning. Oh my god. So I really do need to read this book soon. It has been on my TBR for a while, ever since it came out, so I have heard great things about this. Again, let me know if you've read this, if you think it's worth the hype. I would love to know. So the next book I really want to read is Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher. So this has been described as like a cozy fantasy romance, which if you've watched one of my recent vlogs, which is all about me reading cozy fantasy, you know I'm a recent convert to that genre, especially if there's a dose of romance. So Sword Heart is quite an unusual premise. It follows Hala, who is a housekeeper, and she suddenly inherits her great uncle's estate and all of his kind of like belongings and everything like that. Now we also follow Sarkis, who is imprisoned inside of this like great sword. Like he is somehow locked in this sword, and Hala draws the sword and ends up being able to communicate with him. So it sounds really cute, it sounds really cozy, it sounds very like romantic, and I'm like, obviously there's going to be a romance there. So I've never read anything like this before. I think it does sound quite unique, but I have heard so many people's reviews on BookTube of this book, and I think it is going to be just like my cup of tea. It sounds like very cozy, perfect for autumn, which is of course coming up. I'm already in that zone, guys. I'm already in pure autumn mode, but I'm really excited about Sword Heart. It's been on my list for a while to read, and I think it'll be that fantasy romance that isn't too dark, which, let me just be real, most of the fantasy romance I read is very dark indeed. So it'll be refreshing to have a cozy fantasy romance, and I'm super excited for Sword Heart. Now, the next book is one that I haven't really heard a lot of hype about, so maybe I'll be discovering kind of a bit of a hidden gem here. This is called The Bride of the Shadow King by Sylvia Mercedes, and this is book 1 in a series apparently. It's described as the Bridge Kingdom meets A Deal with the Elf King, which 2 of my favourite books in the fantasy romance genre, so you would hope that this would be amazing. It says, for fans of the Bridge Kingdom and A Deal with the Elf King, this arranged marriage romance about a human princess forced to wed a dark and desperate Shadow King is sure to entice. I mean, what can't entice about that, I'll be honest. It does feature a main character with a chronic illness, which is super cool, like great to have that representation. I have heard this is super slow burn according to the reviews. It's not super spicy either, so this might be, you know, one to add to your list if you're not a fan of loads of spice. But this is basically where this Dark Shadow King initially proposes marriage to our main character's sister, and then something happens that breaks up that betrothal, and of course the main character has to step in instead and they fall in love. That's what I'm guessing it's about, but this sounds cool. Like this does sound a little bit like a lot of the other fantasy romance books I've read, but I do think there's something comforting in that, and I'm hoping that the slow burn romance will really deliver. So let me know if you've read this one. I am intrigued. We'll see what it's like, but I've not heard a lot about it, so we will see what that is like. And the final fantasy romance book on my TBR for the next few months is Broken Bonds by J. Bree. I have not stopped seeing this book on BookTok, Bookstagram, BookTube, everything. Like, this is just supposed to be super dark fantasy romance, and it features a reverse harem relationship. It's described as a full-length reverse harem paranormal romance novel with material that may be difficult for some readers. So I've never read any reverse harem books. I've not really read any harem books. Like, it's not really my vibe, I'll be honest. So I'm a little bit apprehensive going into this. But if it wasn't for so many reviews saying that this book is amazing, it is brilliant, so many 5-star reviews for this one, I probably wouldn't be reading it, but you guys have convinced me, okay? The blurb is not great. I'm guessing this is self-published. It leaves a lot to be desired. It says, after the death of my mother and her bonded, I was relieved to find my own bonds. I was sure everything would be okay if I had them. It wasn't. The fate of our people is in my hands, and I know we're better off if I'm alone. After 5 years on the run, I'm caught and dragged back to face the men I ran away from. I thought I was doing the right thing. Now I'm not so sure. North, Knox, Griffin, Atlas and Gabe may never forgive me, but one thing is for sure, I won't ever forgive myself. Doesn't give a lot away, that blurb, which is I found on Goodreads, but I'm intrigued. I want to know who these 5 guys are. I am intrigued. I'm guessing there will be romance with each of them. That's the point of the reverse harem, surely. I have reservations already, but because I'm seeing this everywhere, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get outside my comfort zone and I'm going to read this book. Let me know if you have read Broken Bonds down in the comments below, because you guys may have to convince me to read this and push it up my TBR in the next month or so. Let me know what you think. Anyway guys, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and do let me know what's on your fantasy romance TBR down in the comments below. I can't wait to hear from you, and don't forget to subscribe if you would like more fantasy romance videos very soon. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video, guys. Bye!